Hey, my name is Thomas, and today I've got this for you. The king of bubble bokeh, the new king of bubble bokeh. The TT Artisan 100mm f2.8 lens. Just 3 lens elements and a world of bokeh. Let's have a go. This lens was provided to me by Pergear. You know Pergear, they supply lenses, camera stuff, accessories, whatever. They have a huge online store. It's a big retailer. They also have Pergear branded lenses. Pay them a visit. I put the links in the description below of my video. Many thanks for your support. The history of this lens dates back to around 1890. That was when the Thomas Cooke and Son Cooke Triplet was introduced to the world, a 3 lens element design. Back then it was meant to reduce a lot of optical errors and make a very good sharp picture, but that was 1890. Later these lenses were known as, for example, the Meyer Optik Görlitz Trioplan that came in 1916. They were sort of inexpensive telephoto lenses, also produced in like the 40s, 50s and 60s, especially in East Germany. And today we've got this new Chinese adaptation of this old lens design. It's not meant to be a super sharp modern lens. It is deliberately meant to pay homage to this old lens design, to enjoy the optical flaws that it has. And yeah, it's more for creative photography, so to speak. You never know what comes out when you take a picture with this lens. This is the version for Leica M mount. Before that, TT Artisan already released a version for the M42 screw mount for SLR cameras. The M mount version focuses down to 0.9 meters, and the aperture ring sits here in the front. It's a bit the reverse design, so the numbers are printed on the lens barrel, and the ring that moves, that turns, just has a small dot on it. Clicked aperture, very nicely made. I did check out this lens on the Leica M, actually on 2 M cameras. It works very well, mounts perfectly, but keep in mind you have to adjust the focus for the rangefinder yourself. TT Artisan doesn't do that when they deliver the lens. And in both cases that I tried, you would have needed to adjust the focus to make it work perfectly. The nice thing reviewing lenses like that for me is no one is really gonna ask about, okay, how big is the chromatic aberration? How sharp is it at the corners and borders? How good is the contrast? No, you're not gonna ask that, but because this lens is not made to win any record in any of these disciplines, but it's surprisingly sharp, I have to say, when you focus correctly. And focusing can be a bit tricky. I mean, this is a modern mirrorless camera. It's a manual focus lens. It doesn't have a lot of contrast at f2.8, so you really have to be careful to nail focus. But the level of detail that's there is actually astonishing for what it is. Keep in mind that if you have counterlight motives or a strong backlight situation or something, it can completely destroy your frame. This lens is prone to counterlight like crazy. Use a lens hood, get a lens hood for that. TT Artisan doesn't provide a lens hood, but you're really gonna need one. Apart from that, even contrast is good as long as nothing is shining on the front lens elements. I found the optical performance overall pretty good for what it is. And remember, in 1890, this was the best you could get. Today, we experience this as a sort of a vintage experience, and we should appreciate the people that designed lenses like that back then for what they did. And you can get pretty high quality photos, but that's not what it's about. This is about the character, the smooth light transitions, the not so harsh contrast, and of course the crazy bokeh. That's what this is made for. I got some bubble bokeh. Now the fun fact is, at wide open aperture f2.8, this lens gives you these soap bubble-like bokeh balls. That's what it's designed for, that everyone is talking about. If you don't want it in any specific shot, just close the aperture down to f4 or 5.6. This lens has a super rounded aperture with 13 aperture blades, and you can just stop the aperture to 4 and 5.6. This so will give you circular bokeh balls that look terrific, but without the soap bubbles, so it gives you a more smooth bokeh, so to speak, if you just stop down. In your hand, this lens, features the typical TT Artisan build quality that we're getting used to. So it's all metal construction. It feels very well made. As always, I cannot comment on how good this lens will look in the next 100 years, whereas some of the original Trioplan lenses that you can buy today, they're 60, 70 years old and they show their age, but they still work. So, but I think it will last quite a while. You've got an all mechanical aperture, and as I said before, the numbers are fixed on the barrel and just the ring with a small dot moves, which is another homage on how they did it back in the day, the East German manufacturers, for example. The focus ring is huge and wide, but it only has this small grippy bit here. I know some people will not like it so much. I find it no problem at all. It just comes naturally. It's easy to handle. This is your depth of field scale. As usual, you should actually ignore these things. They always tell you everything is in focus, and in reality it is not. But this is a Leica M mount. Note it doesn't line up perfectly, but that's not the problem of the lens. That's the problem of this cheap adapter. When you mount it on an actual M camera, it will align perfectly. M mount, and here you see when I focus, how this inner part here moves. And that's the connection to your M rangefinder. There are small set screws. These you need to loosen. There is a set of instructions with the lens to actually make it work on your Leica M camera if it's not calibrated properly, the lens. I think it's got a 46mm diameter here. And as I said before, it needs a lens hood. Plan to get a lens hood for this lens. I don't understand why they didn't provide one. Apart from that, I have no complaints whatsoever. Very well made TT Artisan lens. As you will see in my shots, the bokeh sometimes is glorious, absolutely beautiful. I really love it. And sometimes it's just distracting. It really depends on the motive. So this is experimental, so to say. You always have to try out things. And also keep in mind that if you shade the lens with your hand against, for example, stray light, when the sun is shining into the front lens elements, you actually also have an influence on the bokeh. Like the circles become like half circles of stuff like that. It can be super funny, but again, it can also be super distracting. So this lens is meant to make you experiment. I'm shooting this now on the Fuji, which is of course APS-C crop. It works on full frame cameras just as well. As I said, there is also an M42 version, and I also had it on the Leica M10. It works fantastic. It covers the full frame, no problems whatsoever, and it gives you the same soap bubble bokeh characteristic and the same sort of optics. It's just a super good lens for experimenting, and if you want some decent shots, like technically perfect shots, if you don't want the softness or anything, then you stop down to 4 or 5.6 or something like that, and then it becomes like almost a modern lens, still with a vintage vibe to it, but pretty high quality. I really enjoy shooting this lens. Time for the verdict. I mean, I showed you already that I really enjoy shooting this lens. It can do the soap bubble bokeh effect that many old lenses are famous for. It can also take sort of modern day sharp images if you need it to do so. I do like the M mount version because you don't need such a long adapter, but in the end it doesn't make a real difference. The M42 version will be a little bit shorter, the lens itself, but you will need a longer adapter. Okay. What I really do like about this lens is the price. So TT Artisan sells these at around $250, I think. The M42 is $199. It's a bit cheaper because it doesn't have the M rangefinder coupling. The only other lens that they make today, the Maya Optic Görlitz Trioplan version 2, it's actually 1,000 euros. And if you ask me, that's just way too much money for a lens like that. Yes, it has a great heritage, but it's just 3 lens elements. It's very easy to produce a lens like that. And that's why I enjoyed this one, the TT Artisan. It gives you the classic character. It gives you also classic vibes in terms of the barrel construction, but it doesn't cost an arm and a leg. Typical for these lenses from China, from the Chinese brands. I really welcome that. Having said that, if you want to see how a classic lens performs, the 58mm f1.9 Maya Optic Görlitz Trioplan from 1936, then have a look at that video next. So like and subscribe. If you've got any questions or comments, write something in the comment section below, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye.